Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with friends, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thank you. With well over 200 knives that could technically be considered penknives, it's a chore to try and figure out which would be my top 5 favorite, so I needed to set some parameters. In this video, I'm going to be looking at penknives. For me, the penknife is probably one of the most traditional slip joint knives that you will ever find, especially in modern times, well, at least in the late 19th, early 20th century and such. You don't see them very much anymore, but at one time, just about anyone had a penknife of some type. Now, my favorites are the equal end penknives, and I will talk a little bit about those in a minute. But for me, if you're into traditional slip joint knives, you need to have at least a background knowledge of what a penknife is, because they really are historically important when it comes to traditional slip joints. Now, for me, the classic penknife is an equal end penknife, such as this. Now, they tend to be, as you can see here, right at 3 1/4 inches long, and then they will have 2 blades, and typically it'll be a spear blade and a pen blade. And you see the spear blade is just over 2.5 inches long, and then the secondary blade is a pen blade, which is why they got the name, and it is just a little over 1.25 inches long on this particular knife. The secondary blade usually runs between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches. And these knives were everywhere, and they've been around for a long time. The name pen knife comes from the fact that they used to be used to sharpen the quills, the old feather quills that people used on when they would be writing letters and stuff. And so they were very much around way back in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, and into the 1900s. You don't see them as often these days, but they are still out there a little bit, and it's just a classic knife, and that's why I like them so much. And as we went from an agrarian society to a more urban society, the penknife actually gained in popularity, because this was a knife that was very big among gentlemen and anyone else who basically needed a pocket knife for writing letters and everything else. And it's just a good general utility knife. So that's why this is why it's one of my 5 favorite knives, the penknives, especially the equal end penknives. And as you can see, I have quite a few here. They're not all equal end, and I'm going to go over them a little bit and try and pick the 5 that I like best. And now, as you heard me say, typically the penknife has 2 blades. They're opening on opposing sides. They operate off of one back spring, and so you have a larger blade, usually a spear blade, and then a secondary blade, which is usually a pen blade. That is about as traditional as you get. Now, different people will put different blades on those, but typically what I'm going to be looking at, my criteria for these pen knives that I'm going to be looking at, is it has to have 2 blades, opposing blades, working off of a single back spring, and it's going to need to be right around 3 1/4 inches long or smaller. I might fudge a little bit with the length of the knife when I start picking my favorites, but that's what I'm looking at. And I will look at a few other knives and show some of the variety in there. But for sure, in order for it to classify as one of my favorites, I've got to set some groundwork here. It has to have at least a Spearmaster blade or a pen secondary blade. One of those 2 blades will have to be present on the knife it will have to work off of a single back spring. It does not necessarily have to be an equal end knife, but that would be nice also. So those are my categories, and then around 3¼ inches long, which comes in at around 85 millimeters. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. And I'm not too concerned if it has a clevis or a shackle or bell, whatever you want to call it. I don't care if it has that or not. That's not going to deter from it, because those could be removed, and then this, for instance, would be an equal end knife. And as you can tell, the bulk of my penknives are ones that have a scene on them. These with a metal handle. These are my favorite to collect. There's no doubt about it. I like these. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of these. The ones with the metal handle with some kind of hunting scene or some scene on it. And I'm going to pick 5 of those, and then I will start going through the other groupings and decide which ones I like the best. And that's not going to be an easy thing for me to do. Well, it's going to be easy for a few of them, because right up here, this Boker, you saw something similar in the very first knife I showed. This one is definitely a dibs. This I know is one of my top 5s. This is the Boker 414, just a fantastic knife. Boker tree brand out of Germany, Solingen, Germany, and this was made, I think, back in the 80s or 90s, and this to me is the pinnacle of equal end pen knives with a hunting scene on it. So that's one for sure. I'm keeping that one. And yeah, I'm a pervert. I'm keeping my Naked Lady one too. Really like that one. And it's mainly because the artwork is really good. She's basically a wood nymph, so it's a creature of the forest, and she's got her, she's got a lute or something on her back for singing and everything. So I'm keeping that one too. So now I've got several other ones with a hunting scene. Got a couple of these. I think this one is by Arnett, I think. Arnex, rather. Got a couple of these. This one here, I think, is actually from Japan. I also have one from Germany, and it's got a nice hunting scene. It's a duck hunter, and you see the dog with the waterfowl in his mouth. That's pretty cool. And then I've got the deer scene here, and again, the hunter is in the background with his dog, and you got the reverse scene on the other side. You know, and it's basically the same scene, so that's a good possibility. This one's a little smaller, and you've got a beagle chasing a bunny rabbit down a hole. This one, I believe, is by Imperial in the U.S. Yep, Imperial stainless. I think it was made in the USA. I can't tell. I have to look closer on that. And its secondary blade is over here. Now these have smaller blades, but you notice it's got 2 of the typical blades, a spear blade and a small pin blade. And you've got the reverse scene on both sides. So you've got the beagle chasing the bunny rabbit down the hole. And here's your deer just out in the field. And this one also stainless, and I believe this one's from Germany too. So many of these were made in Germany. I don't know if they were made for the American market or not. Really good action on it. Typical blades. Needs to get oiled up a little bit. Okay, got one with a train scene. I love trains. And this one I think is also out of Imperial. I'm not sure. Yep, Imperial. And so it's a train scene. And the Imperial ones, as you notice, are a little smaller. But they're still pretty cool. This one's almost a dibs for sure. I'm not sure, though. And then this one is actually a modern take by Rough Rider. And you've got the nice hunting dog in the middle there. It looks like a lab. And then on the back side, you got the labs resting. Now, this is a little different than the typical ones. Usually, the scene is the same on both sides. So basically, what Rough Rider did here Oh, this is Novelty Knife Company. I'm sorry. What the Novelty Knife Company did was they combined two of these hunting scene knives and put different scenes on the back and front. But which is kind of nice to have that you have different scales on both sides. So I kind of like that too. And then we have another hunter, and this time he's just standing on the rocks. It looks like he's pretty cool looking too. And this one I think is by Rough Rider, and you got wolves and a wild boar on it on both sides, and two different blades. Yeah. And finally, we got over here the fisherman in the water, and we got this one's in a little bit worse shape. Also by Imperial, and you can tell that by the size. But you got the fisherman, and he's hauling in a nice big fish there. Need to clean up the blades a little bit, but action's not bad. And I'm thinking I'm going to call this number 3 in the medal that I'm going to keep. And these deer or this big deer. I wonder which one. I think I'm going to go with this larger deer. That's 4. And then I'm going to go with the Novelty Knife Company too, because I like the fact that the scales are different on both sides. So we got the lady, the labs, the hunting dogs with the ducks and the wild turkeys, the deer, and the fly fisherman. So that's 5. Those 5 are going to somehow be in this video as one of my favorites. These 5 here. Okay, moving along. Okay. Well, how did that get in here? This one doesn't count because it's a jackknife. Both blades are opening from the same size. It's got 2 back springs, so that one doesn't count. Let's move on here. I'm going to look at knives that are unequal in ends, so they will be a little bit different and fall out of my equal end knife pattern also. So that one's still equal end. That's equal end. You are too big. This one is staying in, even though it comes in at a little over 3.5 inches. So it's a little too big for the thing, but I'm going to keep that one there. That one's also serpentine, even though the ends do look about the same. No, that one will stay here. That's going to stay as equal end. That's a Congress, but I'm going to leave it there. And you're competing with those. Okay. Let's move these other equal end knives over here for a moment. So these knives are different. They're not the equal end knives, and they have something different on them. They don't have the correct blades or something like that. This is a nice Rough Rider with black pearl handles, and the blades are wrong for it though, because it's got a clip blade and it's got a spade blade. So the blades don't quite fit right. So, but it is more or less an equal end pen knife, or you could definitely use it as a pen knife. So I really like the way it looks, and it's got some nice black pearl. And I think most people, especially considering the length is 3¼ inches, I think most people consider this a pen knife, even though the blades are incorrect. And this knife, I've had a couple of videos on this. There's no doubt about it. People know I really like this knife. So it would be a no-brainer if this was one of my favorite pen knives. It's a little bit big for a pen knife. Like I said, it comes in right about 3 5/8 of an inch. Yeah, about 3 5/8 of an inch long. I think they say officially it's 3 1/4. It's got a hidden lanyard loop down here, so it has a whistle hanging from it. But the main blade is definitely a Spearmaster blade. Despite it being bone shaped, it is definitely equal end. And the secondary blade is a spay blade. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's really just an oversized pen knife. So it is definitely staying in the running for my top 5. This is a Camillus half Congress. So you got a sheepfoot blade over here and a secondary pen blade. So in theory, that could definitely stay in the running. It's equal end, and it's got a pen blade. So maybe that one will be here. I don't know. I'll hang on to that one. Here's a case pen knife. They actually call it a pen knife, and but it has a clip blade, and the secondary blade on here is actually a pair of scissors. So neither of the blades match up for this one, but tell me the scissors wouldn't be good in the office. So definitely a right size for a pen knife. Actually a little small, coming in at right 2.5 inches. A little bit bigger, another case knife I have. This one is right at 3 inches, and we have on it a really nice worn clip blade. Worn clip blades are all the rage now, and it's got a nice wedge on that worn clip blade. This is their mini Copperhead. A lot of people also call it a baby Copperhead. Worn clip blade and a pen blade. So it has one of the blades. It's definitely not equal end, but hard not to argue that this is also a pen knife. So that one will be staying here. And then this is the Boy Scouts of America leader's knife. So it's a little pen knife again, coming in right at about 2 5/8 of an inches. And you have a clip blade and a secondary pen blade. So Delrin handles, and you've got your Boy Scout shield. So those 5, it's a small grouping. I don't think I'm going to take, there's 6 of them there. I'm not going to take 5 or 6. I'm going to have to drop this down to 3 out of that. And I know this one's staying, so that's 1. So 2 more out of this group. I'm going with the Copperhead and the root beer bone, because it's really an interesting knife. This could come with a spear blade or a clip blade also, but I bought it with the worn clip blade because I like the worn clip blade on it. So that's, even though it's got the wrong kind of main blade, I'm going with that one. And then now this case could have had a pen blade, but I wanted it with the scissors specifically. So neither blade is correct for this to fit into the category. So I'm going to pass on that, but not because this is not a good knife. This is a fantastic knife and definitely a good knife for the office. Just not for my favorite pen knife. So that will have to probably bring in the Boy Scouts of America leader knife. It's got a lot going for it, despite having a clip blade instead of a Spearmaster blade. As you can tell, this one is made by Camillus, one of my favorite companies, and it does have everything else going for it except the Spearmaster blade. So we'll go with that. This had both blades wrong, and while this does have a pen blade and it does have some nice abalone scales, it's a Congress. I'll throw that in with my favorite Congresses. So now let's go over the rest of these knives. Oh, just bring them all over. I'm thinking this video is going to be pretty long. Okay, this is another Rough Rider, and it's an equal end penknife, even metal scales, and it's for the this is for prostate cancer, I believe, and it says support the cause, and you see the little man on there. They call them their man knives, but it is a Rough Rider knife. I like this one. Typical penknife, 3 1/4 inches long closed, I believe. Yep, 3 1/4. So your basic 3 1/4 inch penknife with some really nice anodized blue aluminum scales, and there is a counterpart to it. The For the Cause for women. This is for breast cancer. Also the little edge there on the blade. Support the cause. And Rough Rider. A little knife. And about 2.5 inches long. So I got those pen knives out of Rough Rider because, well, I supported the cause. And then obviously the Pocket Pal. This is the Pocket Pal by Victorinox. And this is your typical penknife. Correct blades and everything else. Correct length. That's how I know they're supposed to be 84 millimeters long, because Victorinox says these are 84 millimeters long. So they do make if you're a collector of Victorinox knives and you like pen knives, you have to have a Pocket Pal. And I got 2 more of theirs because I collect Cub Scout knives. So I've got the older one that has the metal shield and the newer one that has the stamped shield. So 2 different Victorinox ones that I have to go. One of those is going to be in the final. Matter of fact, I know one of them is, and I'm going to put it right there. That's one of them. The case Eisenhower. This knife was given away by President Eisenhower to visitors to the White House. This was his favorite knife. Nice little pen knife. And it's a classic. And this one is actually from 1976. And I think it's black bone or dark brown bone. Yeah, it is definitely bone. You got the case shield there. And you see that the Eisenhower is a little small on the side of pen knives at 3 inches long. And it's got those nice long bolsters on each side. So it's one of those knives you either love it or you hate it. And I really like this knife. This is a pretty cool knife. I like the Eisenhower. So I know that one's staying. I forgot this one. This is an older Victorinox. It's, what's the name on this knife? Yeah, I had to step away. It's the Popular. And this particular one, from the little brass ending here, says that it's pre-1986. And this is it's like the Pocket Pal, only earlier, and it has a little key ring on it. And you know what? All right, that one's going. I'm going to keep that one instead. Yeah, I had to step away. It's the Popular. And this particular one, from the little brass ending here, says that it's pre-1986. And this is it's like the Pocket Pal, only earlier, and it has a little key ring on it. And you know what? All right, that one's going. I'm going to keep that one instead. Now here, this is the one of the first pen knives I ever bought, and it's from Parks Dry Goods Company. Outfitters for All Mankind, in Rogers, Arkansas. Parks Outfitters was an old dry goods store. They basically a hardware store a long time ago. They sold everything imaginable, and they went belly up and bankrupt. So you'll never find one of these knives again. But this is one of their giveaway knives that they had a long time ago. And you see, it's your typical blades you find on a pen knife. And I like this one simply because it's an old company and it was a cheap knife. Remember what I said about half stops? Even inexpensive knives have half stops. So really well made, and you can't get a much slimmer one, and it's just kind of cool. It's one of the few advertisers I've got. And then this was this is the one they like to call small bolsters, and it's cracked ice or imitation pearl. And this is a Camillus, I believe. Yep, Camillus. It's from the 60s or 70s, around there. Got one. Needed an example, but I really am not crazy about the small bolsters on these knives. The reason they put the small bolster, though, is so that the ends here don't crack. What I like more is the Camillus office knife, and I've done a video on the office knife before, so you know I really like that. Now, it doesn't have the typical blades that you find on a penknife. It does have the Spearmaster blade. This has, not really, it doesn't have a swedge, but it does have a long pull going. And then the secondary blade here is a spay blade. I told you I'd tell you a little more about that. I talked about this in the video on the office knife. And the spay blade on these is actually called an eraser blade. Originally, that little blade was used to sharpen the quill. That was the pen blade. It was used to sharpen the quill. Well, this blade was actually used to erase ink from paper. And so it's called an eraser blade when you find it on the pen knives. And I really do like office knives. So, and it's one of those that I keep looking for all the time. But it has to be in really good shape. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother buying an office knife. So I'm keeping that one up here too. And then the last one here is the Parker, it might be Parker Frost mink. And if you notice, the brass liners fold around the end here, and it protects the bone tips here so they don't crack, which is kind of cool. It is operating off of one back spring, and it does have the blades you find on a penknife. This one has a little etch of a mink because that's the name of it. You see, this is Parker. Yeah, Parker Cutlery Company. These were made in Japan. Yeah, I like the mink. It's just kind of a cool knife. This is the one I have it because I needed a penknife in my white smooth bone collection. And even though they call this one an Appaloosa bone, it was close enough. It's a natural bone color. And so we'll throw that one there too. So let's see which knives I've kept for trying to limit it down to 5 knives. To clear away and put everything up. The Parker Frost mink, the Camillus office knife, Case Eisenhower, Victorinox Popular, a Case Mini Copperhead or Baby Copperhead, my Dogleg Trapper, the Camillus Scout Leader, and then, okay, man, I've got way too many knives. Okay. I'm going to try and figure these out in a little bit, but let's go over the metal ones first here. I've got to knock off some of these. Well, the Boker I know is staying, so that's my favorite. That is absolutely my favorite. There it is. That is my favorite equal-end penknife, my favorite penknife in general. I just love the Boker one here. So let's open it up. The other ones, 2 through 5, who knows where they rank, but number 1, right there, the Boker. He's number 1. All right. I do like that Rough Rider. And this one is still around, so this is one people can actually pick up. I'm sorry, that's not the Rough Rider, that's the Novelty Knife Company. This is one people could actually get and enjoy even today, and it's only $7 or $8, so. And I think for that reason I'm going to keep it here, so. Yes or no? As much as I like fishing, I'm going to pass on that one. And I already did a video on this. We know that if I was just going with the metallic handle ones, this would definitely be one of them. And this would definitely be one of them. So I'm going to keep those two there. But those are two that I would keep if I was just going for the scenes. But I'm going for beyond that. Let's see here now. What else do I want to go with here? Alright. Got two picks so far. The Boker and the Novelty Knife Company. Who am I kidding? I will definitely take this one. This is one of my favorite equal end knives. I know it's a little bit big. I know the blades aren't exactly correct, but I love the dog bone jack. It's just a terrific knife. It's also one that's available so people could actually get it. And the build quality on this thing is solid. It's rock solid. I really like this knife. I especially like it in the dog bone shield on it. I love the saw cut bone. Yeah, dog bone jack. So that's 3. And that leaves me with, oh man, it's getting tight here. Yeah, I love the office knife, so that's going to stay. That's 4. And now we've got I have 5 knives to choose from, and I have no idea which one else I'm going to take. What's going to get knocked out, or if I'm going to, man, not an easy decision. All right, sorry, puppy dog, you're out. I thought I was going to keep him, but I can't. I highly recommend it if you are looking for an equal end knife and you want to get one for about $6 to try out. I highly recommend this one by the Novelty Knife Company. It's truly a well-made, solid-made knife, and it's dirt cheap. So I recommend it, but it's not going to be one of my favorites in this group because I've got 5 excellent knives here, and I'm down to only 2 to choose from if I'm going to get this to 5. And I think I'm going to have to pass on the mink. And man, this is a hard decision. I don't know if I want to keep this or not. I do know I do want to keep this one though. The mini Copperhead. The case mini Copperhead, I really do like this one. I like the root beer bone on it. I like the use of the Warncliffe blade on it. And the secondary pin blade is still there. So it's not an equal end one, but if I'm choosing all of the pen knives, I want to choose this one too. So that one's there. So now I've got 4 chosen. Move you over. 4, and I've got 3 to choose from to get it down to just 5. And this is going to be a really hard choice. Okay, if I were going with equal end knives, I would have probably chosen these 2 and left out the mini Copperhead. But I've got 3 equal end knives. I'm going to try and grab 2 that are not equal end knives. So the Popular and the Case Eisenhower are also out. And I'm going to go with the Camillus Scout Leader's knife as number 5. I do like the size of it. I like the clip blade, and I like the small pin blade. It's a very nice small knife, easy to carry, non-threatening, and very much a classic. And the fact that it is a Boy Scouts of America knife also plays towards me. So that's probably my 5 favorite pen knives, at least for today. We got the Boker 414 with the dog scene, the Camillus office knife, the case mini Copperhead, the Camillus Scout Leader's knife, and the Rough Rider Dog Bone Jack. Those are my 5 favorite penknives, I think. At least among all of the different ones. But as you can tell, if I were just going equal end, then it would be this. And if I were going just the metal hunting scene knives, we'd have the Boker here, the large deer, the woman, the Rough Rider, and the fishing scene. Where did the fishing scene go? And the fishing scene. So, I guess in some ways, you're seeing 5 knives in different ways, but all of them just happen to feature this one, because this one is definitely my favorite equal end penknife, or favorite penknife in general. In any case, long story short, there you have it. 5 different penknives that I like in 3 different categories. How did that go? Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. So overall, top 5, the Rough Rider Dog Bone Jack, the Camillus Scout Leader's Knife, the Boker 414, Camillus Office Knife, and the Case Mini Copperhead and Root Beer Bone. If we're just going with equal end knives, then it's the Boker 414, the Rough Rider Dog Bone Jack, the Case Eisenhower from 1974, the Camillus Office Knife, and the Victorinox 84 millimeter Popular. And if we're looking at the metal scenic knives, I like the Imperial Fly Fisherman, the Wood Nymph out of Solingen, Germany, the Boker 414 also out of Solingen, Germany, the Deer Knife out of Solingen, and then the Novelty Knife Company Labrador Dog, which has 2 different scenes on each side of the knife, and is currently available for under $8. My top 5 USA made pen knives are the Office Knife by Camillus, the Mini Copperhead by Case, the Scout Knife or the Scout Leader Knife by Camillus, Case's pen knife that has the scissors attached to it. I believe that's a 33 pattern, and then the Case Eisenhower. And finally, going around the world, there's always the Parker Minks out of Japan, the Novelty Knife Hunter's Best Friend out of China, a Pocket Pal out of Switzerland, another the Solingen, Germany Wood Nymph knife, and then the bottom knife here is the Duck Hunter, which actually comes out of Taiwan, even though it looks like a knife out of Germany. Thank you for visiting Knife Chats. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that notification bell so that you will be notified when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. See you soon.